This is Ask the Mayor on KWBE, our Thursday morning program with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan as we head into the Memorial Day holiday weekend, which means the Big Blue Aquatic Park opens
right.
up. That is, if it's warm enough that people want to go swim, I guess.
It will be open.
Yeah.
But, I think if you look back, not this week, but if you look back last week, there were some pretty warm days.
Yeah, there was.
Mm-hmm. Now this week, it's been pretty cool the last 2 or 3 days, and a little bit rainy, which was good. We really need that. But it's kind of the mark of the summer, Memorial Day. We open the Big Blue Water Park, and it'll be ready to go. And I know that it's under great management, and the lifeguards are ready, and so let's go swim.
Takes a little time for the water to warm up. It's not heated, but the sun does that for you.
Exactly.
Sunshine does it for you eventually.
What I found out, though, is, with some grandchildren, the cold weather or the cold water doesn't bother them near as much as it bothers me.
It's that initial shock going in, but once you get used to it, then you're fine.
You're fine. Yeah.
I vaguely remember those days.
Me too.
long ago, but it's much easier on them, that's for sure. As far as this year, I think you raised rates just a little bit on season passes because you hadn't really raised them for I don't know how many years. But
no, and in this world the way it's been over the last couple of years, certainly people need a pay raise, and so we had to make sure we cover those pay raises and do the right thing for the staff that we have.
Minimum wage changed too over time.
That's right.
Then I think it's to go to $15 by is it next January? I think it's 13. I can't remember.
I can't remember what the numbers are.
It did it in phases, but it eventually gets to that.
And so it does affect our operations. However, we do keep in mind that it is. We try to keep it reasonable. I think everybody on the council knows that if we lose a few dollars on a public pool, it's really not the end of the world because you're providing something for the people in the city of Beatrice. And so, I think we try to take a really strong look at say, we really don't want to price ourselves out, and we also want to make sure that it's a good deal for the constituents of Beatrice. So, I think every year we do lose a little money on the pool, and that's okay.
Yeah. By the way, that minimum wage reconsideration of changes on that is the first item on the legislature's agenda today.
Oh, is it?
Just a little tidbit of information out there if anybody wanted to kind of useless information that you can add to the pile of things you assume every day. But Jane Raybold's bill is back up. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere, but probably not. But it's there.
Time is running out.
Yeah, it's they're on day 84 or 85, I think, somewhere around there, 83 somewhere.
Right.
So just a few left in this legislative session. The Big Blue Aquatic Park this past Monday, you chose a company out of Kansas to do a master plan, put together a master plan for the future of the aquatic park. Sounds like the company has quite a bit of experience in this field. They
do. We had an RFQ, which is basically a request for qualifications. We got, I think, 4 or 5, and the one that it really boiled down to 2 companies, and this was one of them. And then we went out for basically pricing. We really felt like they were at a really good price for us. We felt like they've had experience in our area. I believe they worked in Fairbury. There's a couple other places they've worked around.
Grand Island, Columbus.
So I think they've got a lot of good talent, and that's all they do. Is aquatic parks. I'll take a step back and say, well, why are we doing the aquatic park master plan? Does that mean there's a new swimming pool coming in the next couple of years? No, it's planning for the future because, I think as some of the people on the council refer to the new water park. The new water park is probably 23
or 25 years old. It's getting.
It is.
It's not new anymore.
It is not new, and water has a way of working on everything. And when you look at aquatic parks or water parks or swimming pools, whatever you want to call them, you're also seeing, I'd say, changes of what people want. over the past 25 years. And so if you look at new designs versus old designs, you really do see a lot of differences in the features that come with water parks. And so they're going to take a look at our current pool. I think there's several options. Is there ways to expand what we have? Is it best to start over? And if you do, how do you do that? And so I think it's just a good time to take a step back and plan and do a master plan to see what it's going to look like. Now, I will say there's going to be at least 2 public sessions where they want your input. What I've seen over the last 4 years, there's not a lot of people that go to a lot of times when we have these public open houses. So I would say this is a great opportunity when they're announced to go and give your input on what a new swimming pool would be.
I noticed on that company's website they showed a few examples of the projects they've worked on and interesting concepts, layouts, and things, kind of more modern looking. And the thing is about when you're used to a facility that you've had for a long time, you don't really have, unless you go to a lot of other communities, you don't really have a picture of, well, what would look good, what would work. But I guess in your mind, what are some of the possibilities you think could work here in terms of, upgrading an aquatic center for Beatrice?
Oh, wow. That's a good
Kind of
question.
put you on the spot there, huh?
Put me on the spot there.
Well, I know, for instance, at one time, like a lazy river was
Correct.
one possibility.
There is a lazy river that could go through there. There's certainly maybe some ways to incorporate island in it. I haven't been to a lot of other swimming pools and aquatic parks, but I think if you look at some of the bigger ones, I know Grand Island has had one. I think Fairbury actually added some nice features to theirs. It'll be interesting for me to also see what are the options, and that's why we're starting this project early, because let's just say I don't have a date in mind of when the new aquatic park would begin or end, but let's say it starts in 2030. 2025 isn't that far away from 2030, and it's that step again of trying to plan ahead so we can continue to move forward and meet goals that will help the city.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what, since they've been involved in so many projects, and the ones I think that were on the website might have been Kansas ones. I think they're from Kansas City, Kansas, and it was mentioned they've done several in that state and some as far south as Oklahoma, maybe Texas, so be kind of interesting to see maybe some examples of what has worked and maybe what hasn't worked as well. You never know.
and I think the really good thing for me and the perfect timing, but not only do we believe they're going to do a good job, they've said to us, we want to come look at your pool when it's open and how it operates. And then we want to take a look at your pool after it closes at the end of a season. And so they're willing to come up and do a number of visits just to see exactly where we're at and maybe where we can go.
Yeah. Before we take a break here, as we're on recreation, kind of going into Memorial Day weekend, understand some playground equipment about to go in at Froberry Park in South Beatrice. That's right near the smaller water tower that you have, the smallest of the two there.
Correct.
And I heard, at least from the city administrator's report, you're not all that far away from getting new playground equipment for Sartoma Astro.
Correct.
Is that right?
Correct. Okay. That's been a project with the city and Sartoma, and it looks like we're closing in on that. Again, we're trying to make sure we get some equipment in. It's kind of interesting. Some of the equipment that we're trying to get in and purchasing, even if they're holding it, will eliminate some increases in the tariffs, and that's what happens.
Yeah. It's like all the car dealers are saying, hey, you ought to buy this model now because it might go up a little bit in the future.
And speaking of Sartoma Astro Park, I will put a plug in, is that the splash pad's open.
True.
So if you're not wanting to wait a couple more days for Memorial Day for a little bit of a good, fun, wet time, the Sartoma splash pad is now operational.
Well, it's had a couple or three 80-degree days where that would be pretty nice down there.
Absolutely.
For kids and adults in that area. You take the kids down to the park, and it's a short walk, and pretty cool.
Absolutely.
All right. We'll take a break here on Ask the Mayor and have more coming up here with Mayor Bob Morgan in just a moment. Back on Ask the Mayor today with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan. We were talking about Sertoma Astro, which is at 19th and Jackson. That's where your big water tower is, too. And it's going to be, or is, I think, undergoing some, maintenance?
Yes,
cleaning
maintenance,
there?
cleaning, and painting. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that happens every 5 years. And so this is the 5th year. I think they basically, number one, we'll drain it. And we've been in the process of draining it slowly so that, the water isn't wasted. It's not like we're going to throw the whole water, drain all the water out of the tower. So we do drain it slowly, and it does get used. To keep the pressure up, we'll use pumps. And it's one of those things that I think is pretty amazing for the city. We have a couple of underground reservoirs where we keep our water, as you're aware, but probably most people aren't. Yeah. And, so we'll make use of our underground water reservoirs, which also at time to time have to be cleaned. Yeah. But I think it's pretty amazing if you just, you think about water and you turn on the faucet. If you really think about it, and again, we talked maybe a little about worthless knowledge in your head or whatever, but I've had the ability to see how complicated water is, and how to get it to your home and how to store it so that you have it when it's needed, and at the right pressure and the right pumps. And it's not as easy as just turning on your faucet to get it there. For me it is, because that's all I do. But for the city and the water department, I think they pride themselves in all the work that they do, from the pumps at the well, at our well field, to the reservoir, to keeping our 2 water towers up to date, to, as we'll talk in a few minutes about maintaining and fixing water breaks. So there's a lot to that.
Yeah. And you have in addition to the 2 underground reservoirs, the smaller water tower is still in service. And I think you kind of stagger the schedule on cleaning those so you don't have both of them offline at the same time. That would not be a good thing. So,
yeah.
Okay. You mentioned maintenance, the water main break at 6th and Market.
Yes.
How's things coming there? I hadn't driven by there. I did the other day, but
there's still one lane that's blocked off there. They're making progress. They're going to get it worked on and get it done. I'm not sure exactly the date of when it'll be reopened, but it'll be soon.
Yeah. Well, a big thing the council approved Monday night was an economic development loan, LB 840 program support to Hoppy Development in what is called, I guess they're calling it Paddock LLC.
Correct.
And that's to repurpose the historic hotel downtown. That last was an assisted living center before it closed about, 5 years ago?
I bet it's been 5 years now.
4 or 5 years ago now.
Yeah.
So, and about this time of the year, too. I think it was in April when it
it was.
When it closed. Interesting project.
It will be a really interesting project. As they noted, I think there's what I want to call maybe a business touch to the first floor. My understanding is Engage will be moving into that area when it's done, with some business or incubator space. I'm not 100% sure. That's on their plate and not the city's. I think the rest will be housing, and there'll be studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, maybe a 3rd bedroom. And I thought what was interesting is that when they start the remodel, they're going to start from the 5th floor and work their way down. Yeah. And so they hope to have some of the units ready to go. What he said was January of 26, which isn't very far away. And so, Hoppy development, I really appreciate them. They've become really part of the community between, the Paddock project and then the Stoddard project. They're really helping this city rehab 2 buildings. And, when you think about it, Paddock Kensington sits there from a historical perspective for the town. That's a pretty big piece of the downtown. And so to have a developer come in and really what, at least on paper, what it's going to look like is going to be really, really attractive. And so as we work together to revitalize the downtown, and you've got the RAISE grant, I think in 5 years you're going to see a complete different complexion. An update is probably the best word of the downtown of Beatrice. One
One of the issues that's come up since the vote on the loan Monday night was, and this was from the public, they're questioning about what about parking in terms, because you have, kind of landlocked area a little bit there, and you have this huge building surrounded by other businesses, other properties. I guess that's up to the company to determine, is there going to be a solution to that, or what are some of the possibilities out there, I guess?
I know they're working on solutions, and they're also looking at, and we're looking at the public parking the lots that we have. We have several that are really pretty close. I think there's some things that they can do with maybe loading and unloading lanes and then parking a little further away, which if you think about it and you go to a lot of cities where they've revitalized their downtown, parking doesn't necessarily mean it's right in front of where they live. And so I think they have a plan in mind. I think they're also always looking for areas that they can rehab into parking. And we'll continue to work with them for the best parking we possibly can provide.
The other variable is when you do get to it many years down the road, but the downtown redevelopment and possible rerouting of the highway, how that might factor in.
Oh, absolutely. There's going to be, there's going to be some opportunities for parking there as well. One of the things people say, well, when you reroute, what do you do with the parking garage at Pinnacle? And again, we're not to the planning, we're not to the design stage, so I can't answer that, but there might be some opportunities there as well.
Okay. Reminder, coming up tonight, there is a meeting at the School Administration Building Boardroom at 6, Beatrice Police and a Beatrice Community Watch meeting. I think they held an introductory meeting here a while back to kind of say what it's all about. This one, I would imagine, is just taking it a step further as to how much interest there might be.
Probably how much interest and what neighborhoods might be interested in the Community Watch. It's kind of like a neighborhood watch program. I think it's a great program. I think that, again, I've seen a number of good projects come from the police department over the last, year or two. So, again, if you feel like maybe organizing something in your neighborhood, I would encourage you to go to the school administration building at 6 p.m. And see how you can help.
I think last time they kind of talked about, for those neighborhoods that want to become active in it, one of the steps would be kind of to determine who's kind of a neighborhood watch captain or community watch captain, or maybe captains that can work directly with police, so that if there's any concerns, there's kind of a connection there. You can go between those two sources. Yeah.
Right.
So that's
and I think that opens up better lines of communication. So you have one voice going to the police department.
I didn't get to the torch run the other night the police had with Special Olympics. I know that's one thing they do every year.
They do.
Had another person at that to look at it. That's kind of a neat event. It was kind of a little bit cooler night to run, but that's kind of a neat event that the police have always done, law enforcement has done, to recognize those with disabilities and Special Olympians. So.
Absolutely, and I thank them greatly. I was not able to be there as well, but... that's when you think about it, those are just the really quality things that our police department's able to do, maybe based on the size of the community, but more importantly, the desire of all of the officers from, the newest ones all the way to Chief Murphy. There's just a lot of things that they do. You think about all the different community things that they reach out for. This is a great one. Another one that they've started, and I would encourage people the next time they have it, is, the morning coffee with the cops. That's just another great opportunity as well. So they'll continue to be a very strong partner and of our community.
Not all police departments really have that, first the interest, but also the capability for their officers to kind of go the extra and do those community relations type projects. And this department's always done a lot of that over the years.
I mean, it goes back from... probably clear back to, the strong desire that Chief Lang had and the department back then. Current leadership under, Chief Murphy, it's the same thing, because I think they see the strong benefit of that connection with the community, and the community sees that strong connection with them.
Okay. Back to wrap up Ask the Mayor with Mayor Bob Morgan in just a moment. Have a few minutes left on Ask the Mayor today with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan. A big project where you selected a bid Monday night is a grit removal system upgrade at the wastewater treatment plant, and came in a little over
It did
what you thought it would be.
It did.
But sometimes they do.
Well, they do. I think one of the good things about this project, though, is we did have a appropriation from
I think it was Congress.
Congress, yeah.
Through Adrian Smith.
Through Adrian Smith, and we want to thank Adrian Smith for that. I think that was $2 million of the project. So the grit removal system is one that basically removes grit. And I'm trying to remember the two things that were major in that.
I think sand and
shell.
was it snail shells?
Snail shells.
Yeah, kind of things that can kind of grind systems to a halt or wear and tear on parts and things like that.
So it basically separates those, and for some reason I think it was, amazing how much of that really can get into your plant. And so basically it's I'm imagining this right, kind of like a big screener, and that basically screens things as it goes through and keeps the bad stuff out. Puts the better stuff in, and
the better bad stuff.
Yeah, and away you go. But and again, as I talked about the water department, it's when you think about wastewater, again, that's a whole nother technical area, right down to testings and bacteria and coli and all those things that we have to keep an eye on a monthly basis. James does a good job, and everybody that works in that plant does a good job of helping with our wastewater.
Yeah. Well, at one time I can remember there was talk about you'd have to build an entirely new plant at some point, depending on the technology and wear and tear. But it seems like you've been able to accomplish major improvements kind of systematically as you've gone along. Has that made it easier to maybe eliminate the need that you'll ever have to really replace a plant, but you just have new systems periodically come on?
Right. I won't say ever, but I do know that every step that we take, just like the grit removal, extends the life of the plant, and those aren't cheap.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that you see on your water bill is an infrastructure fee for that, and so we do have the funds without adding that to the tax rolls, and that's how that project gets paid for, is through the infrastructure funds and the appropriations from Congressman Smith.
All we as residents tend to think about is we flush and it goes away, but you have to deal with the process after that. So,
that is correct.
Yeah. And it's out of sight, out of mind to most people, but not to a city government. It's one of those major things you have to provide.
Absolutely, yeah.
Speaking of projects coming up, Lincoln Street between 25th and 27th, sometime after the Memorial Day holiday. The exact start date wasn't necessarily pinned down, but sometime next week.
Sometime next week. See, they definitely didn't give us it'll be on Tuesday, but it'll be sometime next week. There is a clause in that, by the way, of that plan, though, is that we've asked them to be done before school starts.
I see.
So, because there will be a little bit of a headache and closures on 25th through 27th. It is a strange, I don't want to say a strange stretch, but it is a stretch that just really needed to be finished off, because if we would have left it the way it was when you did 33rd and Lincoln to that, it really needed some attention. So, seems like 2 blocks. But again, you've got driveways, you've got intersections, and so you've got a little bit of time that it'll take.
Isn't it concrete right up to 25th as you head eastbound, and then there's just kind of that one asphalt stretch left, and that's basically it.
So we're going to take care of that.
Yeah. So 25th to 27th, I think that's M.E. Collins Contracting was the firm that was picked for that. Ella Street, 2nd to 3rd. Is that closer to...
I think it should be going out to bid very shortly.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly where it is. I know there was a downtown meeting, and I'm thinking that it's probably very close to being on the street.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think some of it was just what's it going to look like? What's the design? What you're taking what is a brick street right now, but with some asphalt patches here and there, and some curb areas that are kind of well worn out. But that's going to change that whole
change
look.
That complexion and kind of give a look at what the possible Court Street renovation will be as we move the highway with the raise grant that we got.
Okay. So this might be kind of the first precursor test case, however you want to call it, or example, I guess,
Yes.
of what's possible in the future. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And people might ask why we're starting on the second and third. Well, as we move, one of the things I found is water rolls downhill. So if you do anything on fourth and fifth and you don't do second and third, then you're going to be redoing it because you've got the water issues that you have. So our plan of doing this on second and third makes a lot of sense when you think about water and runoff and storm and sewer.
Yeah. One last thing, maybe just only have about less than a minute left. This is unfair, but budget-wise, any update there, or just kind of going through the department possibilities, or what?
I believe that all capital projects have been submitted to Hannah by the department heads, and now they're moving on to their operational budgets, so we continue to move right along. Mm-hmm. I think Hannah's doing a great job. I know there's a new software that we're using, so it takes a little bit of different touch, but I think the budget is really shaping up, and we'll see where our final numbers are sometime this summer.
All right. Well, have a happy Memorial Day holiday weekend, Mayor.
Hey, you too.
All right.